Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee meeting. I declare this meeting open at 6:06 p.m. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. I pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. I have an apology from Councillor Leon Pun. Are there any other apologies? Can I please have a motion to accept apologies and grant leave?
I'll second that.
Who was that, sorry?
Sam.
You all put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against? I declare the motion carried.
Unanimous.
Notice of live streaming. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute taking purposes and is also being broadcast live to the public on Council's website. In accordance with Section 5 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice, the recording will be made available on Council's website. The order of business is as shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed confidential session, according to Section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Any disclosures of interests? None declared. And there are no speakers registered for tonight's meeting. Start with the first motion, confirmation of the minutes of Finance and Governance Committee meeting held on the 9th of December 2024. Can I call for a mover and seconder?
I'll move that.
And a
I'll
second.
second that.
Put the motion forward. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against? I declare the motion carried. Bin 002-25, Capital Projects Expenditure for New Assets by Ward for the period 2016-2024 for capital projects over 500,000. Can I call for a mover and a seconder?
Move it.
I'll second.
Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask? Is that was the motion? Is that the motion? Leon. Oh, Leon. I was just going to ask because it's hard to tell because, like, I've seen Moordale's got a lot of money, but that's where the Penshurst Park. That's probably one of the biggest projects.
Through the chair. So I think it is important to note that we have a very diverse asset portfolio and it's not always an exact science of when projects retire or when we're doing new funding. It can be grant funding based, so the timing of investments across wards can vary, but yes, there within wards there can be some high value investments that we've had over the time or new assets. Penshurst Park was one of them in the Mortdale ward that was done over that period.
Right. Do we have any other questions? No? Yeah. I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against? I declare the motion carried. Bin 003-25 investment report as at 30th of November 2024. Can I call for a mover and a seconder?
Happy to move, Chair. I'll second it. Chief seconder.
Yeah, you can give a second. Have we got any questions in regards to that? No. Don't we usually have a comparison, or is in the next one we're compared to the market?
Through the chair, so point 5 of both reports highlights the performance index, so our portfolio performance against the performance index, which is the Bloomsburg-Osberg, and we're currently in excess of it because we do have a conservative, like we only invest in high A and above. We'll always be pretty close. We're not ever going to be like highly over achieving in the performance index. So as long as we're slightly above is the target for that. But yes, in both reports, we're at 0.37 and then 0.4% above the performance index.
Any other questions?
Can I ask if there's any further update on the legal action? The class action.
Through the chair, we don't have any change, but we can check it up for the next report to see. Through the chair, further, it's not a high value one, and I understand it's even for a prioritisation, I think, of the party, the group advocating for it. I think there's other ones that take a higher priority. So kind of when there's issues, it just slots down. But the last one we're in, I think, can be 10 years and we can still find a return eventually or some compensation. So it's just good to remain in it for the life of it until something comes to be. But our Chief Financial Officer can chase up and get a status update for the next report.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, I declare the motion carried. FIN 004-25 investment report as at 31st of December 2024. Can I call for a mover and seconder?
Happy to move, Chair.
I'll second it.
Have you got any questions?
No.
I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, I declare the motion carried. FIN 005-25 quarterly budget review report for period ending 31st of December 2024. Can I call for a mover and a seconder, please? Anyone?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Couple of questions, Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to the Director. So paragraph 15 highlights some concerns around going over budget with employee costs for the second quarter. Specifically, I note that it's referring to casuals and temps. Is there a particular directorate where those casuals and temp are falling within? And what's the strategy to try and relieve this? Because I presume there isn't a strategy if we're saying it's pushing out to $1 million for remaining quarters financial period.
As through the chair, so previous years, it's important to take into context the point 16, which refers to prior year budgets up until 23-24 relied on we had quite a strict saving strategy and cost reduction strategy. So that was a mandated vacancy rate that every department had to hold of 6.5%. So there were rules on backfilling positions, recruitment freeze as well of 16-week holds. In 23-24 and 24-25, due to kind of, I guess, the large resignations and morale, and there was union advocacy as well, that it was kind of detrimental to sort of employee wellbeing. We put in an assumed vacancy, so assumption is that we may hold the vacancies, but it's not actually reduced out of departments' budgets. So that gave departments, if there was a vacancy, they could backfill it with a casual, or they could put in temp agency to backfill, because they had 100% occupancy technically in their budget permitted. So executive team have been discussing that to achieve that target, we are going to have to apply that savings reduction. So everyone will see a drop in their budget and actually have to maybe make decisions around positions they backfill or not backfill or hold longer and vacancies to achieve that target. So it just makes the prioritisation a little bit harder again, and sort of potentially having to do a bit less. Other directorates, all directorates are a bit different. So environment and planning and community and culture have some higher vacancies, so they're not having to, I guess, it's just by the natural recruitment trend, they've got a few more vacancies. Whereas, yeah, since in infrastructure and business and corporate, we'll probably have to make some harder, I guess, decisions of what we stop doing to try and accommodate that. It's likely, again, this will follow through in the 25-26 budget, that we will need to look at some cost reduction strategies if we're going to achieve the surplus rather than rely on a natural assumption.
So just a follow-up question.
I was going to say casuals in childcare. Obviously, we don't make shortcuts where we have an obligation for ratios and stuff like that.
Okay. So through you, Madam Chair, just a follow-up question. So what I'm hearing is that the casuals and temporary agency staff is across all directorates. Is there a particular directorate that has probably predominantly a concern around where we're having issues with filling? Like, is it, you said community culture is one, and then you said planning?
Through the chair, it's not to say it's whether it's issues or just the recruitment. So every department would have a different vacancy rate or vacancies at a given time. Like it's been mentioned that technical services team do have a number of vacancies. So for the capital program, they've got temp agency staff working so that we don't delay in the delivery of the capital. I think in your don't quote, but I think the environment and planning and development team do have a number of temp agency, again, where it's that service expectation and delivery. That's where we do it, whereas when we can try and prioritise in a team, then we don't utilise the temp agency staff as much.
Because when I read this, it seems like it's since I've been in council in 22, it seems like an ongoing.
So counts through the chair, it's been raised with council that council can't technically afford to have 100% occupancy of its employee costs because we would then be in a deficit. So every year we look at strategies of how we put in, like whether it's recruitment hold or whether we hold a number of positions and don't fill it to make sure that we then have hit the operating result that's the budget. So some councils may make a decision to reduce the establishment. So you might start prioritising which positions you have within the structure and which ones you don't. So at this point, it's being more directorate led and done based on what's coming in at that time.
So am I reading this right? The last statement through you, Madam Chair. So it says total employee costs are anticipated to exceed the full year adopted budget by approximately $1 million.
Through the chair, if we don't do anything, but executive team have considered and we're trying to repair the situation to achieve not go over by $1 million, but current run rate and trend, if we don't change what we're doing. So if we just rely on current we don't actually hold positions, we're going to run over. So that's where I was saying in previous years.
Hold, yeah.
So we don't have that. So previous years we had recruitment holds and vacancies. Currently that's not adopted in this current year's budget. It's a natural vacancy. So it's not a enforced target. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So executive team don't want to overrun and we want to try and so we communicated that we are going to try and implement some strategies within our directorate to try and bring back the result.
So that's paragraph 29, what you've outlined, yeah. What's the strategy? Sorry, I'm not.
So through the chair, every directorate's slightly different. So as I said, the community and culture and environment and planning have a number of vacancies due to just recruitment trends or sort of difficulty in the market. It might not be that we can fill the positions, whereas your business and corporate services and assets are pretty much full, if that makes sense. So where there is a position, someone might resign or applying casuals to backfill. We're just not we're not doing that to try and generate savings to offset the overrun. Yeah. But in 25-26, it's likely we'll recommend to council that we revert back to those pre-2023 strategies that we had in place rather than just relying on natural trends. Yeah. Yeah. So that was the shift. We'll talk a lot more about it in the 25-26, but we've relied more on every directorate has a slight trend. I don't know if you want to add anything, our Chief Financial Officer.
Through the director, yeah. So I guess just on the casuals that you mentioned before, like it's kind of split across all the directorates. So there's no one directorate sort of way off compared to the others.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Danielle mentioned, it's a focus topic of the 5-26 budget, so we'll talk a lot more about it in the briefing and referring back to those the forced vacancy rate where we actually allocate it out to each directorate and they have that target in there, rather than looking at what we've naturally achieved and then forecasting that into the next year, because we've seen in the last 2 years that we're not actually achieving that natural vacancy.
So to the chair, it's like we're relying on a trend, whereas the trend's not coming to fruition. So we do think that target needs to be within the departments. So the chair, we have found that every directorate is different, whereas the one size approach doesn't always work. So that's something we're discussing at the moment. It's very hard to apply the same ruling across every area because the impact can be different, or the approach might be to fill the positions there as well and really drive that to make sure we're full complement to deliver service. So it's hard from the messaging as well with staff. It's different across every department. Yeah. So we're working through that at the moment.
Any other question? I'll put the motion.
I've got a quick question. Paragraph 20, talking about the capital program, and I think if I read it correctly, we've spent 27% of the capital budget, and we have 4 or 5 months to go. Is that something that we're concerned about?
Through the chair, we do get assurance from assets and infrastructure that they're confident, but the finance team who have the predominant portfolio, they will be having those revisited conversations now in the preparation for next year's budget to really, I guess, push, do we think that's realistic and do we need to drop the target from 50? Usually we rely on run rates and don't usually see, but we do always see a spike in the last kind of quarter of the year. There is a bigger expenditure in the last Q4 just before the year end, but definitely finds we rely on trends and patterns, so we escalate that and sort of say let's relook at it, which is what the team I believe are doing this week, and relooking at the trend and sort of seeing whether it is realistic and achievable and we need to push it out into future years more.
So potentially next year you might be a lower capital budget based on capacity to deliver. Is that the potential?
Yeah, and it can be, through chair, it is hard. Some projects can be high value but very simple, whereas some can be high value and complex. So it's hard because you can't just look purely at the financials. Some can, or the instalment amounts of the contract and stuff like that can be timed for different deliverables. So the project might be finished, but maybe we're waiting on a clearance of something before we make the final payment. So it does really rely on knowing the details of it to work through, but we definitely kind of question and make sure it's achievable. But yeah, we do agree, and there isn't anything stopping council having a smaller budget and then once it's complete bringing things forward from future years as well. So that's something that we can do. Yeah,
Good to know. Yeah, thank you.
I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, I declare the motion carried. There being no other business on the agenda, I declare this meeting closed at 6:24 p.m.